The arrogant police chief tore up my son's missing person report. The chief didn't even look up from his desk. He just took the report from my hands, skimmed the first 2 lines, and tore it in half. The sound was slow, deliberate, like he wanted the rip to sink into my bones. "Your coward son is probably AWOL," he said without looking at me. "We're not wasting resources on some runaway soldier." My ex-wife, his daughter, stood by the door, arms crossed like a verdict already passed. "He's probably just drunk somewhere," she added. "You're overreacting." I didn't speak. I just stood there, listening to the paper fall in pieces onto the chief's polished floor. He waved me toward the door like I was a stray dog. I walked out without a word. Not because I accepted it, not because I believed them, but because I had already learned, long ago, that you don't confront people like them with emotion. You let them think they've won. You let them believe their own lies. And then you make them choke on the truth. I drove home in silence. The city moved outside my windshield like it had somewhere important to be. And I didn't. They thought they knew my son. They thought they could reduce him to some drunk, some deserter, some embarrassment. They didn't know him at all. The truth? He wasn't just a soldier. He was the soldier. The one you didn't see on record. The one who went where official channels couldn't. But that was classified. Even his mother wasn't supposed to know. I'd been there when they recruited him. I'd seen the way they'd spoken to him, like he was a weapon, not a boy. So when his calls stopped, when the coded messages he used to send me stopped arriving, I knew it wasn't booze or fear. It was something else, something darker. And the man tearing up my report? He wasn't protecting his resources. He was protecting her. Because my son didn't just vanish in the field. He vanished the night after he sent me one final broken message. She's involved. I started with the basics. Her phone records, her bank statements. She always underestimated me. Always assumed that after the divorce, I'd stopped paying attention. I hadn't. She'd been meeting with someone regularly, 3 nights a week, hotel on the edge of town. Never charged to her card. Always cash. 2 of those nights coincided with when my son was last seen. I went to the hotel. I didn't ask questions. I just stood in the lobby, looking at the logbook. Same man, same alias, same room number. I called in a favor from someone who still owed my son his life. They pulled the real name from that alias. It was a contractor. One of those shadow operators you only ever hear about when they vanish. The kind my son worked with. The kind my son would have trusted until they had reason to make him disappear. And she, my ex-wife, had been meeting him long before my boy went missing. I didn't confront her. I didn't even look at her differently when we crossed paths. But in my mind, I replayed my son's last message. Her laugh when the chief tore up my report. It wasn't laughter at my pain. It was relief. Relief that her part in this was buried under the weight of his badge. The file arrived 3 days later. Secure envelope, no return address. I opened it at the kitchen table. Photos, reports, a single video file on a flash drive. I watched. My son, bound, bloodied, still defiant, being questioned. Not by enemy forces, not by foreign agents, by the man from the hotel. And standing in the corner, her silhouette unmistakable, was my ex-wife. She didn't speak in the video. She didn't have to. The way she looked at him was enough. Cold, calculated. When he refused to give up whatever they wanted, the contractor nodded once. The camera cut off before the end. I didn't need to see the rest. I walked into the chief's office without knocking. He started to stand, mouth opening with some practiced insult. I slid the envelope across his desk. "Before you open it," I said, "lock the door." He didn't move, so I locked it myself.
I sat across from him and waited as he emptied the contents, photo by photo. When he reached the video file, I pushed a small laptop toward him. He watched. His breathing changed about 30 seconds in. By the end, his face was pale enough to pass for paper. "You can bury this," I said. "You can pretend it never happened." I leaned in, voice low. "But if I ever hear your voice dismiss my son again, this file doesn't go to Internal Affairs. It goes public. And when it does, your name will be the one people remember." I stood, opened the door. She was standing there, frozen. Her eyes darted to the laptop, then to me. I didn't say a word, didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any confession. I drove out past the city that night, past the noise, the lights, the people who would never know his name. I pulled off the road, killed the engine, and sat in the dark.
I thought about the boy who used to run across the yard with a stick pretending it was a rifle. The man who became something stronger. The one they couldn't break, even at the end. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I just sat there, listening to the silence. They thought tearing up my report was the end. It was just the beginning. And now, every time they look over their shoulder, every time they wake in the night wondering what I might do next, that's my justice.